Hi, welcome to the Human Experience podcast, or at least, the podcast, because your human experience is already underway, it's already en route, you're already within, and I'm here on this podcast, so welcome. I should probably get a theme song and whatnot, but I don't know, I mean, an equivalent to what would my theme song be on the day that I was, becoming born type situation. So I try and see if I can't find something that appeases a mine and your soul, as well as this little community that we're building for each other, or for ourselves rather. But each other sounded better. Okay, so confession. I had a whole episode edited, uploaded, just ready, waiting to be published. And then I woke up and I was just supposed to click publish and continue on with my life, or rather the experience. And then I woke up remembering that today is Father's Day in South Africa. And it kind of brought me to this halt, like, it's Father's Day. Oh, it's the first Father's Day since my step-pops passed away. And how could I have forgotten that? How could I have forgotten that? How could I have forgotten that one of the most important people in my whole entire existence, who rooted and still roots, because energy never does, it transforms, from beyond, all day, every day, conspiring with the winds, with the birds, with everything for me to win. How could I have forgotten that, today's the day that I usually honored him. I've been honoring him on this day every other year, so, just like that. How could I forgotten? How could I have come up with a completely different, it did not slip my mind. It's one thing if you had thought of it and then you had noted it and then it slipped your mind. It was not there to begin with. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this trauma thing is real. Because I read once somewhere that your brain does that to you. Like the human brain, and this is understandable. This is just mammals trying to protect themselves naturally. So you have this innate thing that kind of just blocks memories that are unpleasant, that trigger you to such a sense that you may feel that you're being attacked, which is understandable, because if we're keeping a buck from the perspective of objectivity and all that, and hell, I could even say that this is subjective towards me, but grief feels like a personal attack. Grief feels like she's coming for you and only you. She's on that tip of on some, I want to be felt, I want to be heard, I want to be, and there is not a thing you can do. You can't get out of bed, you can't talk about it, you can't find nobody to relate it to, you can't do this. And she's very demanding about it, she's very loud about it, she's very fierce, she's very present, she's about it, she's a very strong energy. And we can't shame her for it, because she's the final song, you know what I mean? She's unexpressed love. She is, and we can't look at grief like, girl, I just wish you would get out of my life and whatnot. So what did my brain do? My brain was like, okay, we're going to have to just omit this part of your life, and we're going to have to just pretend, for the sake of your sanity and all those around you, or for the sake of the part of my brain that keeps the survival part of my brain that keeps getting activated every time you think about this, yeah, we're gonna have to try and make you forget that. Wow. The power of the human mind, the power of perspective, the power of changing your perspective, day in, day out, consciously and unconsciously. And that was initially what I wanted to talk about. But shit, my brain then just did a thing on me, and then I'm like, uh-oh, you did the Jedi mind trick, showing me the lesson about the Jedi mind trick. Yes, I get it. Shout out to my Star Wars and Star Trek fanatics. Peace and love to you. May the 4th, So, I am very pleased to meet you on the spectrum of time in this infinite and abundant existence. How pleased are we, Here we are, you and I, chilling. And chill we shall. This episode we shall chill. We shall take a moment. We shall give thanks. Thank you for listening, ears. Thank you for subjectively a sound mind. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for mercy. Thank you for grace. Thank you for compassion. Thank you for technology. Thank you for humor in the winter and tears in the summertime. Thank you for new dawns, fresh dew, nature. Thank you for nature. Thank you for the ability to see, understand, ponder, to interpret, and to express. Whew, that felt nice. That felt really good. Yeah, thank you for real. So today I just want to dive into being in perspective. Being in perspective is a very, very vital thing. And mind you, I think you've taken note that I'm not talking about getting perspective. I'm not talking about shining a light on perspective. None of that. I'm talking about to be in the perspective. Not to have an angle on perspective, or any of that. Just to be within it. To be one with it. To be aligned with it. To be what I see. And I find it so beautiful how we all see things so differently. And it allows us to be these different but very valid and very needed lights within society. The same way you would have two siblings who live in the same house but have completely different outlooks on life, completely different ways in which they find comfortable in expressing themselves, things that they look at as positives and negatives, pros and cons, memories, core memories, completely different. For people who live in the same exact house, grew up under the same exact rules with the same parents. Is that not a beautiful thing? Is that not a phenomenon? It's like, it's weird, but it's beautiful, you know? And that's perspective for you. That's the presence, that's the current reality. That's to be in perspective, to be in the present, because perspective is, after all, influenced by the individual in question plus their surroundings. Your perspective and my perspective to the topic at hand will be completely different because we are currently experiencing it in two different environments. Perhaps you'll be able to reach it easily and receive the message easier than I did, you know? I might need to run this back and just meditate over it again. The art of representing three-dimensional objects on a two-dimensional surface so as to give the right impression of their height, width, depth, and position in relation to the other. When getting to know a person, you know, you hear about 3D, 4D, 2D, 5D, levels of consciousness. You don't know where this person is. You've heard people say people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. You don't know how deeply this person has met themselves. You don't know what are we dealing with here. So how could you ever get frustrated if someone doesn't understand you? If someone is unable to meet you where you are, how could you be frustrated if someone doesn't believe you for the truth that you know? How dare you get frustrated for the blessing that is being different? How dare you get frustrated for uniqueness, for the opportunity of growth, for the opportunity of a new frame of mind? And I know that we're trying to push this whole be around like-minded individuals, Sure, with principles and core values, yes. Don't just go around killing people, please. But if we're all thinking the same in the room, how are we going to innovate anything? You feel me? So don't get frustrated when your partner is not making any damn sense to you or doesn't understand a word that's coming out of your mouth, or your best friend, or your mother, or your sister, or your colleague. If anything, celebrate it. You're in a place where you can still grow. There is something you could still learn. Maybe you could learn to articulate yourself better. Hell, I mean, we've all heard that if you can't explain it to a 4-year-old, then, I mean, do you really understand what you're talking about? If you can't explain it in layman's terms, you know? Oftentimes we have the scripts. We have it in our head. We know self-care, you know, spend time with yourself. You know, eat healthy. Don't neglect your mind. Mental health, you know? Are we implementing those acts? And what does it mean for you? There is a generic perspective that is being shown, shone, S-H-O-N-E, like shine, but, you know, it's a very uncomfortable word to say. There is a perspective that is being shown, a very general perspective on how self-care looks like. But self-care could look like 1,010,000 different things, 7 billion different things. plus minus. Because all these babies were soothed differently when they were kids. When everyone was an infant at some point, you were soothed differently. Your subconscious knows comfort differently from your neighbor, Some people need a little music. Some people just need complete silence. You need some people to massage themselves. Their parents probably were giving them little cute baby massages, so now they're adults that need to go to massage their bodies. That's funny. That is such a bad statement. It's funny. No such thing as good and bad, just miserable and joyful things, by the way. Learned from a friend of mine recently that gratitude is the language of receivers. Thought I could share that with you. But yeah, we come with all these different types of perspectives, different ways in which we could look at it, different ways in which we find ourselves angry at people who are unable to be us, do things like us. But you also want to walk around, thumping around, talking about how I am so real, I'm a one of one. Watch yourself. Because the purpose of perspective, don't fight against the current, Don't fight against the friction. If you don't get it, you don't get it. If it makes you uncomfortable, makes you uncomfortable. If everyone is flocking towards it and you just can't, you can't see it, that's okay. It sounds crazy, looks crazy, feels crazy, got your mom worried, but it feels like the only logical thing to do. That's okay. Because the purpose of perspective is to help you reconnect with your mission, your maktab, your written, your contract, your whatever you want to call it, your journey, your purpose, your destiny, you. It's to reconnect with you, your awe, your power. For your yes to be yes and your no to be no. It's okay to accept another person's perspective, but do not accept it as your own. Accept it as a perspective. Observe it. Learn from it. Maybe accept it as your own if you see fit, but don't be a yes man. Nor should you surround yourself with those. Word to the wise. It's to help you notice all or nothing kind of thinking, that fight or flight behavior, your triggers. You've found how the more you get to know yourself, your consciousness levels, all that type of stuff, that's where you start really diving into my triggers, the red flags. What am I doing wrong in these relationships? Why are people unable to relate to me in all these relationships? Seeing as I'm this common denominator, Perspective also helps you just put yourself into another person's shoes. Helps you have a little bit more empathy, to be empathetic. It's a very human trait, And you don't want to lose that. You don't want to turn into a creature. I mean, who am I to say you don't want to? But I would assume you don't want to, and that you're very happy being human. It helps you just zoom out. You ever just zoom out of a situation? You get to zoom out but not zone out. Kind of just zoom out. Look at things from a couple of steps back. What's that by J. Cole? Good news is you went a long way. Bad news is you went the wrong way. Yeah, that's why you kind of need to zoom out and not zone out. Zoom out often enough. Every other fifth step. Zoom out just to make sure you're not missing a curb, a sign. A piece of information that would maybe help you build your case, maybe help you change perspective. I know that for myself, I had to recently learn, and not really learn, but learn to acknowledge rather, when I've changed my perspective upon new information that I've gained. And I'm a fairly passionate individual. When I believe in something, I'm like, yes, 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 this is the truth, the Bible, and the only truth. No, actually. There are 7 billion perspectives and they're all true and very valid. And to top that off, if you have something that invalidates a point that you have made or helps build upon it, because it's really just the big sphere of a picture or a sphere of a puzzle. If there was ever a puzzle shaped like a sphere, I would think that's what we're trying to do as humanity. We're trying to build it. And the pieces just keep falling in. But that's what it is. And we're just trying to combine all of our perspectives, all the ways that we think, without killing us all, I suppose, without ending the whole thing. And now it gets tricky because we start fighting and we start using isms and phobics to describe one another. It's sad, but it is what it is. It's reality. So, the refusal to reject anything about yourself breeds ground for a valueless life, but you know that. And that's what I love about perspective and having my perspective shattered. And I appreciate having my perspective shattered quite often, really, because I'm a firm believer in the litany that your ego lives off the stories you tell yourself. So if you can prove me wrong, thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, darlings, it's just, I just wanted to chill, Just wanted to pick up perspective, gain your perspective about perspective, being like a inception of perspectives. Because that's really all it is. We're just a society that sells perceptions and perspective and angles and shots and lights and smoke and mirrors and sell you visuals, selling it to each other, which is why I'm also very extra thankful that you're listening. That's beautiful. We can, as a community, try and regain our perspective, and be in perspective. Perspective, being in perspective, is similar to the prayer of, may my wants match my needs, you know? It's okay to see things for what they are. No need to dress it up. You don't need to baby bad thoughts. If it's bad, it's bad. You don't need to think and make it worse, you know? Return to the task. Think big pictures, you know? Maybe walk away, try and figure out what you're doing. Reach out to different people for more perspective. Kind of like how I'm reaching out to you. Refocus on work. Or on anything that pleases you, really. Just find a way to allow yourself to think freely. But more especially, find a way in which you could do so while still remaining accountable. Because I know some of you guys are gonna use that freely, #freely as a scapegoat to do some crazy stuff, and that's not what I'm promoting. Think freely, but know that no good deed goes unpunished, and that everyone gets what they deserve, whatever that is. Needless to say, hey man, thanks for chilling with me. Like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you want to talk about. You know, let me know what you're thinking. What perspective of yours was shattered recently? Shattered like crazy. Apart from Santa Claus and all that cute stuff. And yeah. Peace. Same time next week. Thank you for experiencing this with me.